Yeah, g'day YouTubers. Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. Someone was asking me, could I talk about splitting axes and splitting mauls, and could I explain to the beginners which one they should buy? So that was a question from a beginner. Said, oh look, yeah, I've just gotten myself a chainsaw. I've moved to a country area and I need to source my own firewood, and I've been watching a few videos and can't decide whether to buy a splitting axe or a splitting maul. Can you sort of do a video on that? I said, yeah, sure, I'll do a video on that, not a problem. So first of all, we'll just rattle off a few points and we'll talk about, and I've got two Fiscus, got the ISO core and the X27 there, so I couldn't fit them all on the bench, so we'll talk about those. I've got about 25 splitting axes and splitting mauls. I guess I've been collecting them lately, but I probably only got one more as a Husqvarna S28, which is 2.8 kilos, so that's on order, that's coming in, so it's renowned as being a good one, so I don't expect anything different than any other splitting maul that I've got. So anyway, let's get into it. First of all, if you look at a axe handle, and there's the axe right in front of us, there's the curved handle that you see on an axe. You may have been wondering, oh yeah, all axes have a curved handle, and the splitting mauls, you can see the splitting maul on the Stihl Oxenkoff here, straight handle. So generally speaking, a splitting maul has a longer handle of 36 inches. That's 900 mil, and your axe is typically around 800 mil. That's 32 inches. Why is that? Simple reason. It's just really comfort. That's the only reason. The other reason is, when you've got a straight handle, it's much more accurate when using a straight handle than a curved handle. So that's an interesting fact. Anyway, we'll just go over a few other points. So that curved handle, I actually love the curved handle, and I've got a curved handle in a splitting axe, and I find it, this is a Cyclone Super Splitter, 2 kg Cyclone Super Splitter axe. You've probably seen these over in Europe. Very, very broad angle there for splitting wood open. I really do like this one. It's only got a total weight of about, I think with a handle it's about 2.8 kg, something like that there. So that's actually one of my favourites. It's probably good up to about timber up to about a foot. But we can get into sort of that, about the different weights and how they split different size timber. So the first point that I made was about the handles, the long handle versus the short handle. Obviously, the longer the handle, you're going to get a greater velocity on your swing, but the curved handle is generally for comfort, and it's not as accurate as the long handle. So the next thing is a curved axe. If you look at an axe, there's a curvature on the axe. It's not flat. You look even on this split, this particular type has a curve on it. You look at the block splitter here, it is dead flat. The Oxenkoff, the Stihl Oxenkoff, it's got a slight radius on it. And if you look at the Stihl splitting axe, it's definitely got a defined curve on it. And the last one at the back here, this is the Estwing. It's got a curve on it all, and it's a splitting maul. Now, why have you got a curve? Well, quite simply, the whole idea of the curve is, especially when you're using a axe, as when you strike timber, is that you can strike timber at a fairly, you've got more of an angle. You don't have to strike exactly dead flat. You can strike this way a little bit or that way a little bit. So that's the whole idea of the curve, is that when you strike the timber, especially when you're splitting, a lot of times you've got to bend your knees down. On these flat ones here, you need to bring the splitting maul down so that that's why people bend their knees, to try and bring it down parallel with the log. So trying to keep it as horizontal as possible. Whereas when you've got a splitting axe, you can vary. It doesn't have to be horizontal. It can be, and that's the whole idea of the curvature. And believe me, it really does work. And that's one of the points about, which one is better. This one is also narrower. A lot of the block splitters you'll find are much narrower, especially like this one here, the Cyclone. It's only about around 60 millimeters. And when you look at a splitting axe, they are much, much wider. So that's interesting in itself. Obviously, the wider it is, this part, the raised, the highest point is right in the middle here, same as here on an axe. So that's the first part that's going to strike and have the most force, and the whole idea is it will penetrate. So very interesting. The next point is that a maul is always heavier than a splitting axe and always has a longer handle. So that's traditionally what it is. Now, I've got a few, it's on the floor here. This is the Fiscus. This is the beast, the Fiscus Isocore Pro Maul. It is a beast. Have a look at that. The shape of that head. So on here, I wrote it on the back. It's 3.6 kilos, but it has a total weight of 5 kg. This is the Isocore Pro. The only thing that I did was reprofile this edge. I'll tell you why in a minute. Virtually all my splitting mauls have to be reprofiled, except for the Fiscus splitting axes. I've never had to reprofile one of those because they're sort of made perfect. This is a Fiscus X27, long handle. So yeah, very long handle on this. It's as long, it's a 900 mil in length. And one of the reasons that these are so popular is that this edge on here is really sharp. So this angle here is about 30 degrees. And this angle, this beveled angle on here, it's a little bit difficult to see. We'll see whether you can see it or not. This beveled angle that they've got on here is 25 degrees. This is a 25 degree bevel, this here. And this is what makes the Fiscus very popular. The wedge isn't too wide. The edge, the actual wedge isn't too wide at all. It's only 25 degrees. And the wedge is around 30 degrees, and the actual splitting edge on the end is only 25 degrees. So there's only 5 degrees difference between it. And you can get a sharpener for the Fiscus, which really does work well. And that's your sharpener for your Fiscus. So that's for your axe. You got your axe and your the axe here. It's 30 degrees. So the whole idea is that when you put your axe in there, it fits perfect. And it really does work good. It's like a little ceramic wheel inside. And if you've got Fiscus axes, it won't do the maul. The maul is totally different. It's for the splitting axes only, and for knives. So you push it over there, it does the knives. So I can't recommend Fiscus products any more highly. They are brilliant. Now the other thing is, the mauls, a lot of the mauls that you buy, these edges aren't really that sharp, except for the Estwing, it's razor sharp, and for the Fiscus. If you sort of look at some of the ones that are coming out of Europe, and especially the ones coming out of China, They've got very, very broad angles on them, up to 90 degrees on these edges here. Now, the claim is that if they've got a blunt edge, it'll help split the wood better. That's the claim. The problem is that may work okay in your softwood like your birch and some of your maples and some of your ashes and your pine. But it certainly won't work really well in tight-knit grain like eucalypts. The grain structure of a eucalypt tree is the grains of wood are only about just over 0.5 millimetre longer, and on your soft timber they're about 6 times longer than that, 3 to 3.5 millimetres in length. And the density of the eucalypts is a very dense tree. When you pick up a bit of eucalypt, you know you're picking a bit of timber up because it's quite heavy. So therefore it is much harder to split, and therefore the sharper the splitting axe or the splitting maul, it's going to start the penetration much, much better. So the quicker that you can start your penetration, the quicker that it splits the log open. If you've got a blunt edge on it and it starts bouncing off, you're going to have to repeatedly strike the log until you create a crack, and then the next strike will start the splitting process. And that's why I like to keep all my splitting axes or splitting mauls razor sharp. And testament to that is this east wing. This is a factory grind. It is razor sharp. It comes out of the factory like that. You'll notice this is a bit of a hybrid because typically this is a splitting maul. Have a look how wide that is there. And it has that nice radius on it as well, not the flat. So you've got the best of the both worlds in that one, where when you look at the splitting axe, you've got the curvature, you've got the curvature, axe, you've got the curvature, splitting maul, straight. And even on the fiscus, it's got a slight curve on there, but not much at all. It's almost flat. And the splitting maul on the fiscus, it's got a slight radius. So fiscus put a slight radius, but not like this or the est wing. So that has a lot more. That S wing, by the way, I've got 2 of them. I brought them on cheap. They're having a clearance. That's why that one's brand new, never been used. But the other one that I've got in the woodshed, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Nice, comfortable handle on that too. If you actually have a look, we spoke about a lot of the times the mauls have a straight handle. Typically what they've done with this one is put the curvature in the handle. Not much, but there's a slight curve on the end. So yeah, that is one of my favourite splitting mauls, east wing. Can't go wrong with them. Okay, so one of the other reasons, if we go back quite a while ago, probably well over 100 years ago, typically they used to split timber with a splitting wedge. This was typically how they used to do it. They used a sledgehammer or a splitting maul. So the whole idea was that if you strike the timber with this flat section here, and because they were generally blunt, it would put a dent in the timber. And so you'd have a nice heavy maul, and you'd bring it down onto your log, and you'd put a big dent in it. And then you would put your splitting wedge where it made that indentation into the wood, and then you would use a sledgehammer on the back of the splitting maul to drive in the wedge. And that's the whole idea why you had the sledgehammer on the back, to drive in the wedge. So that was a pretty common practice. And then these days, most people don't use the splitting wedges They just use a splitting maul. I guess the design has changed a little bit over the years, and typically that's what most people do. The other thing is, and it happened to me yesterday, seen many videos, hundreds of them, where they're using a splitting maul and it repeatedly bounces off the timber. Well, I had that problem yesterday. I had a piece of timber that I cut up with the chainsaw, and it was the fork in the tree. So at the base of the fork, probably about almost a foot, or maybe not quite a foot, that's where I cut it with the chainsaw. Then I brought it back home, and I was going to use it for a chopping block. So then I got the chainsaw again and cut at the base, and to try and get it, nice and square and level. And then I decided, I won't use that. I thought, I'll give it a go at splitting it. I reckon I hit it 40 times. I still haven't split it. So the grain is distorted. This is one of the reasons why it's so hard to split knotty timber. Your grain is not running in a dead straight line. It starts to get distorted. And being distorted, it can be very difficult to split. And that's the reason why knotty timber is terrible to split. Best advice, don't try and split in the middle. Try and split at the edges. I just tried to split in the middle because I was just testing it out. I wanted to see if I could bust it open. And I was really surprised that I couldn't bust it open splitting in the middle. And then I went to the edges, and then it started to split after a couple of strikes. So, okay, we've spoken about a few things there. Let's talk about the weights. So typically a splitting axe is generally lighter. If you were to look at this Fiscus X27, it only has a weight of 2.4 kilograms. With this fibre comp handle, and it's fairly lightweight as far as a splitting axe is. The fibre comp handle, lucky if it weighed 150, so it's going to put it around 2.5 kilo, 2.55 kilo, something like that there. These are extremely popular in the world, the two Fiscuses. These two here, the Maul. If you've got these two here, that's pretty much all you need. You're going to be able to bust open small timber, big timber, not a problem. And if you have a look at the big head on here, it's fairly large head. So good to use wedges if you need wedges as well. My recommendation is that where do you use splitting wedges? Well, generally if you've got knotty timber and you're striking, doesn't have to be knotty timber, it could be some other hard timber. Let's just say you've got a piece of timber and you sink the maul in there, and the maul's just putting dents in there. Then you bring your splitting wedge out, and sometimes you need 2 or 3 splitting wedges to split over a large round of timber. And you'll find out in that situation that the X27 will just bounce off the timber. Yeah, you're not going to split it unless you've got a wedge. That's quite common for that to happen. So first of all, let's just talk about when we look at an axe and you look at that angle there, you've only got about 15 degrees there, and on the beveled edge there, we've got about 30 degrees. So that's fairly common. And you, as I said before, you've got that slightly curved handle, but much more curved at the back. And that's more for comfort than anything else. So yeah, it really does feel good with that little curve on there. Then you've got the Cyclone 2 kg super splitter. Very comfortable to use. Great for small to medium sized timber. So splitting anywhere from about, say, 4 inches up to about a foot. That works quite well in that situation. Then you've got the block splitter, the Cyclone block splitter, 2.5 kg. This works up to timber probably up to 2 foot in diameter. Very simple. It doesn't have hollowed cheeks out, so the cheeks here are straight. It's a simple piece of metal, but as you can see, you've got the sledgehammer part on the back. Great for driving in those wedges. Now, this type of splitting axe is fairly cheap here in Australia. They're only around about 60 something dollars. Then you go up to something like the Oxenkoff by Stihl. This will cost you about $170. So that's an Oxenkoff from Stihl. And look at the large sledgehammer on there. It's a beautiful piece of splitting axe. Beautiful. And the other one that I really like is the Stihl splitting axe. It's only a 2 point, what is it, a CS30? It's 2.8 kilos, the weight of that, the Oxenkoff. Look at that huge overstrike protector. You also notice, and you'll see it on the S-wing, you'll see how the blade comes down. It's got this hook on it. Whole idea is that if you actually draw a straight line, you'll see that you've still got protection from there. So, yeah, we're mainly using this part for the splitting. As it curves around here, this gives a bit of protection also. Overstrike protector. It's the same as the S-wing has a built-in overstrike protector. You'll see that large hook on there. And if you draw a straight line, it's going to bring you down about here somewhere. So that's all that is. That gives you a bit of overstrike. Because this is the main part here where you're going to strike. Got to be careful. This is just razor sharp from the factory. So it comes down to, yeah, what are you going to buy? Yeah, what's the recommendation? Well, essentially, it comes down to what sort of timber you're going to split. If I was going to have to select one, I'd either choose between the S-wing, which is 2.7 kg, that's that one there, or 2.8 kg for the Stihl Oxenkoff splitting axe. They're probably my two favourite axes. The Fiscus ISO Pro is also another favourite. Look, I've got that many favourites. This is certainly going to get you out of a lot of trouble. This will get you out of a lot of trouble. So the splitting axe, I've got a bit of a formula that I've always used and it works reasonably well. And if selecting either a splitting axe or a splitting maul, you're going to need, to me, you're going to need get a splitting axe and get a splitting maul. So in other words, even if you had something like this at 2.5 kg, cost you around about $60. This is 2 kg splitting axe. This is about $60 also. So for $120, you can get those two, and that'll get you out of trouble in most situations. So my formula is for every 4 inches or 100 mil diameter of wood, you need at least 1 kilogram of weight. So if you were to use that formula, say on this maul here with 3.6 kg, multiply that by just nearly 4 times, which is only going to be around about 16 inches, you're going to be able to use that on a 2-foot log, roughly. If you're trying to split anything bigger than a 2-foot log, you really want a hydraulic splitter. Yeah, it's getting too hard to split wood a 3-foot diameter. It's just not something that most people would ever do. Yeah, so that's the formula. So if you were to look at a 2 kg, that will split something up to 8 inches. 3 kg is going to split something up to 1 foot. And 4 kg is going to split something up to up to near 2 foot in diameter. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention was when you do see these two products from Stihl, this metal overstrike protector actually adds to the weight, especially to the head end, and you're looking at a total weight of this of 4.6 kilos, and this is 3.9 kilos, and this one here from Estwing has got a total of 4.1 kilos, and this splitting maul from Cyclone is 3.7 kg. So the bottom of the handle, it's mainly this area around here where all extra weight of the handle actually helps, especially with the steel ferrules for the overstrike protectors. Look, I hope that helps. If there was just one and one only that I was going to pick, it'd be a toss-up between the Stihl's Oxenkoff splitting axe and the Eastwing splitting maul. That would be my choice. I'd have to pick between one of those two. All these ones that I've shown you today, they all work really good. I don't sort of turn around and say this one works better than that one. Obviously, the other thing to also remember is also that the heavier it is, it's going to tire you out much, much quicker. So just remember that if you've got something that's heavy like this Fiscus maul, it's got a total weight of 5 kg. It's not something you want to be swinging all day long. So certainly if you've got about 4 hours of splitting to do, yes. And by the same token, you don't want something. This is a 2 kg. This is a 2 kg one from Cyclone. If you've got large rounds, you don't want to be using that all day, because you're going to have to swing that a lot more. So the bigger the rounds, the bigger the maul. Hopefully that makes sense. The smaller the timber, the smaller the splitting axe or the maul. If you can, probably 3. If you have a 2 kg, a 2.5 kg, or a 3 kg or a 3.6, something like that there, then you'll sort of be able to get away from splitting small timber from about 4 inches upwards up to about, say, 2 foot. That'll get you out of trouble. Anyway, I hope that helps. It's been quite a lengthy bit of a discussion there. I've got 25 of them, so I'm talking from experience. The only other thing that I will say, and you can have a look in some of the videos, I did talk before how I've never had to reprofile these edges on the Fiscus, because they're razor sharp and they're the right angle, or the Estwing, razor sharp and the right angle. So typically this angle here is 30 degrees on the splitting axe. On the splitting maul, it's about 40. Now, when I brought these two axes here, or the maul and the axe, typically they were near 90 degrees. I had to get an angle grinder and change this angle here. This one I got to about around 45, and this one I got to about 50 degrees. And I can tell you there was 100%, a double improvement. It really does make a big difference. That's because we're splitting some of the hardest wood in the world here in Australia, eucalypts. Hardest wood in the world actually comes from Australia. It's called bull oak. It's got a Janka rating of about 16.7. Janka rating is about a 12 mil ball bearing, and they use a load so that ball bearing is depressed into the timber about halfway, and that's the Janka machine. So bull oak is the hardest in the world at 16.7. The timber that I'm cutting and splitting has a Janka rating of about 15.7, and that's called grey box. Iron bark would fall behind that, and some of the red gums are going to be around the 14s and 15s. So overseas in other countries where they've got softwood like pine and birch and some of the maples, and the ash, they're only pushing on the Janka scale around about fours and fives. So if you're splitting wood that's only got a Janka rating of 4 to 5, and I'm splitting wood that's got a Janka rating of 15, can you see how the conditions are totally different from one to the other? And that's why I need to grind this beveled edge different so that it penetrates. If they'd just made them with that angle and sold them that way, it wouldn't matter what country they shipped them to, whether it's softwood or hardwood, they'd work fine. And that's what Fiscus do. Fiscus put that edge on there at 30 degrees. It works perfect in softwood and it works perfect in hardwood. And that's one of the reasons probably that Fiscus got their geometry right, and they probably sell more splitting axes and mauls than anyone else in the world because they got it right. Anyway, that's my take on it. So if anyone ever tells you that a splitting maul needs to be blunt, that's old school. That's coming back from the old days when they were using mauls to dint the wood, and they'd use a splitting wedge to hammer that in. And these days, not many people are using splitting wedges. So a lot of the companies out there, except for East Wing, are putting blunt edges on them. They need to lift their game. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now.